All right, fans, I'm going to take you through a cool little gun here that has a fatal flaw. The SIG 552. This is the shortened or commando variant of the SIG 550 series. It's a pretty handy little gun, and it's a gun that AR users can pick up and run with pretty easy because the selector and the bolt release are almost in the same location. All you got to really learn how to run is the charging handle and the mag release. But it has a fatal flaw, and it's why SIG later went to the 553 and upgraded, and I'll get to that in a second. It uses the standard SIG 550 series magazines, which is a polymer magazine, kind of semi see-through, smoke colored, and it has the lugs on the side so you can link them together. That, however, is of dubious value. All right, it rocks in like a standard AK magazine. Charging handle is on this side, just like an AK. And when you go to disassemble the gun, you have to pull this latch down to pull the charging handle out and get the gun out the back. All right, it hinges open very similar to an M4 carbine. Let me clear the gun out and show you what I'm talking about. You have a push pin back here, you push it and slide it across, but you got to be careful because the recoil spring is going to pop out on you in the 5.52 format only. All right, right there. Now, this is the fatal flaw to this system. The standard one used a sheet metal flat plate in the back and had a guide rod welded to it. The problem is, with use, eventually that sheet metal plate would fracture or separate from the rod, and then the recoil spring would go haywire inside the receiver, shutting the gun down. You could no longer fire the gun. If that happened to you in the wrong place, that would not be a good thing. What ended up happening with the 5.52 is SIG ended up going to a polymer guide rod setup, which is what this is, and then later they abandoned this design and went to the 5.53, which moves the recoil spring back up here in the gas piston area like it is on the rest of the 550 series guns. All right, now all you gotta do, guys, pull this to the rear, charging handle out, and it comes out the rear, and if you're a fan of the AK, you'll recognize what that looks like. One of the interesting things here about the gun, this particular one, select fire, safe, semi, 3-shot burst and fully automatic, is if you want to switch it to semi only, you have a little plate right here, you pivot it around, and now the selector can only go to semi. It's blocked from going to 3-shot burst or full auto. This is kind of a dubious value because if the individual knows how to hinge the gun open, he can flip it back and now he's in the fun mode. So I'm not sure exactly what that does for you in the real world. All right, side folding stock, like a standard 550 series gun. This particular one is the diopter model. So it takes the 550 series scope mount and has a diopter style rear that rotates around, very similar to what you saw in the HKG3 and MP5 family. Now, the SIG 550 series guns in the diopter model are kind of famous for having tritium night sights, okay? You have a flip up tritium night sight here and you have 2 dots in the rear. Here's the problem. Sounds good in theory. However, these 2 dots are so close to your eye, in pitch black, they blind you. They'd be much better off having a front dot only and you just look over this V-notch rear and not having tritium at all in the rear. It's one of those things that sounds good in theory, but in actual practice, having this tritium glowing right by your eye is a no-go. All right, I'm gonna put this back together, light it up for you, and get some classic Vickers Tactical Channel slow-mo for you coming your way. All right, gang, fixing to go hot here. Before I do, let me give you a few pointers on shooting one of these. First off, ambi selector. So whether you're right or left-handed, easy to manipulate the safety with your thumb. However, like most ambi safeties on guns like this, I recommend you actually put it back on safe with your trigger finger. So you put it on fire with your thumb, put it back on safe with your trigger finger. In addition, the 550 series guns, the trigger guard pivots out of the way for glove use, which is exactly what you'd expect coming from a country like Switzerland. All right, now, sight-wise, this has the notch in the rear here, unlike HK's, which has the V notch, obviously was a carryover from the K98K of World War II fame. This actually has a square notch along the lines of an AK, but much closer to your eye. Of course, the aperture is more usable, but if you have to have a quick reference rear sight, this isn't bad. Last but not least, these guns are fairly heavy. This gun weighs just a little bit over 7 pounds empty. has about a 9-inch barrel. That's not bad if all you're doing is carrying the gun in a magazine, but if I'm putting an optic on it, a light, a laser, and all that, this thing gets heavy real fast. The 550 series, which are stamped sheet metal guns, that comes back to haunt you. All right, so time to go hot here. Also, a little bit of rise to it, as you'd expect. Short barreled gun, you got that bolt mass coming to the rear. Remember, it's basically an AK bolt carrier here, so you get a little bit of rise to it. So in order to control a gun like this on auto, you got to get on it, all right? Now, another thing about it, has the burst mechanism just like an HK in the respect that if you get on the burst mechanism real quick and get off 2 shots like I did, the next time around, you'll still get 3 shots. It doesn't have a memory like the burst mechanism does in an M16 and whatnot. So just like HK, I get back on that burst. I'll get 3 shots again if I stay on the trigger. I won't get 1 and then 3 shots, all right? Much more complicated mechanism, but if you would argue, if you want a burst mechanism, you want to have that feature. Hey, thanks for watching the Vickers Tactical YouTube channel. To subscribe, click here. And to watch some of my favorite videos, click here. Have a good one. LAV out.